Emily had always loved the park. Its sprawling green lawns, the laughter of children on the playground, and the comforting chatter of parents swapping stories as they watched their little ones play under the golden afternoon sun. That day was no different. She had packed a small diaper bag, tucked baby Noah into a stroller, and made her way to their favorite bench near the playground. The perfect spot to feel the warmth of the sun without it being too harsh on her baby's delicate skin. Noah cooed happily, his chubby fingers grasping at the air, his big blue eyes darting around in fascination at the sights and sounds of the park. Emily smiled down at him, brushing a gentle hand over his soft tuft of hair before reaching for her iced coffee, relishing the simple joy of a peaceful afternoon. She didn't notice the woman at first. She had been so absorbed in watching Noah giggle at a passing butterfly that the stranger's presence barely registered. A woman in her mid-40s, her short blonde bob immaculately styled, dressed in an expensive-looking cardigan despite the warm weather. The woman, later known as Karen, seemed pleasant enough at first glance. Holding a designer purse in one hand and a phone in the other, her perfectly manicured nails glinting in the sunlight. "Oh my goodness, what a beautiful baby," she gushed, stepping closer with an almost unnatural enthusiasm. Emily, used to the occasional compliment from passers-by, smiled politely. "Thank you," she replied, adjusting Noah's tiny sun hat. But there was something odd about the way Karen looked at Noah. Her eyes didn't just admire him. They studied him, scanning his face with an unsettling intensity. "How old is he?" she asked, her voice dripping with exaggerated sweetness. 6 months, Emily answered, shifting slightly in her seat. She couldn't pinpoint why, but something about this woman set off a tiny alarm in the back of her mind. "Oh, he's just perfect," Karen sighed, a dreamy expression overtaking her face. His little cheeks, his eyes so precious. The way she said it made Emily's stomach twist. It wasn't admiration. It was longing. Noah kicked his tiny legs, babbling in response, and Karen let out a small, almost wistful laugh. Then came the questions, ones that felt intrusive, though they were masked with a friendly tone. What's his full name? Was he born at the local hospital? Does his father have the same eye color? Emily, growing uncomfortable, answered vaguely, giving short responses as she tightened her grip on the stroller handle. The woman's smile never wavered, but her eyes darkened slightly when she realized Emily wasn't offering much information. "You're such a lucky mother," Karen mused, tilting her head. "He looks just like my son when he was a baby." Emily blinked in confusion. "Oh, you have a son." Karen's smile faltered for just a second before she nodded quickly. "Yes, he was just as beautiful. Same chubby cheeks, same adorable little nose." There was something off about her phrasing. Was just as beautiful? Was... Before Emily could process the odd phrasing, Karen suddenly stepped even closer, placing a hand on the stroller's handle, her fingers brushing against Emily's. "You must be exhausted," she said, her voice dripping with faux sympathy. "Being a young mom is so hard. I remember when my son was this small, I always thought, wouldn't it be nice to have someone to help?" Every muscle in Emily's body tensed. This conversation had turned from mildly unsettling to outright disturbing. She subtly adjusted her position, angling her body between Karen and Noah. "I managed just fine," she said, her voice firmer now. Karen's eyes flickered with something unreadable, and then, before Emily could react, everything spiraled into chaos. In a sudden, blindingly fast movement, Karen grabbed Noah from the stroller, yanking him into her arms as she took a step back. A blood-curdling scream tore from her lips, so loud and shrill that heads snapped in their direction. "My baby! Someone help! She's taking my son!" The world blurred around Emily as pure panic crashed over her like a tidal wave. The surrounding park-goers hesitated, confused by the scene unfolding before them. A well-dressed woman clutching a crying baby, sobbing hysterically as she pointed an accusing finger at Emily, who stood frozen in shock. "He's mine!" Karen wailed, holding Noah against her chest with a possessive grip, rocking him slightly. "She stole him from me. Call the police," people murmured, uncertain of what to do, their gazes flicking between Emily, who looked pale and horrified, and the seemingly devastated mother, who was now cradling the child protectively. Emily's mind screamed for her body to move, to act, but for a split second, she was trapped in the sheer disbelief that this was happening, that someone, a complete stranger, was attempting to steal her child in broad daylight. She lunged forward. "Let him go," she screamed, her voice raw with terror. Karen twisted away, her grip tightening, her face morphing into something wild. "No, you can't take him from me again," she shrieked, her nails digging into Noah's onesie as he wailed in distress. Again? Again? Emily's thoughts spun wildly, her heartbeat hammering in her ears, but she had no time to process Karen's chilling words. Bystanders were reaching for their phones, some calling the police, others filming, but no one was acting fast enough. Emily had one chance, one moment to get Noah back before this deranged woman disappeared into the crowd, and she was going to take it. Emily didn't think. Her body simply moved, driven by the primal, uncontrollable force of a mother's instinct to protect her child. The world around her faded into a blur of noise and chaos. The gasps of bystanders, the distant barking of a dog, the rapid clicking of someone's phone camera capturing the unfolding nightmare. All of it meant nothing. Only one thing mattered: Noah. With every ounce of strength in her body, she lunged forward, her hands reaching for her baby, her heart pounding so violently in her chest that she could feel it in her throat. Karen saw her coming and twisted away, gripping Noah's tiny body so tightly that he let out a shrill, terrified cry, his little arms flailing as he tried to reach for his real mother. "Let go of my baby," Emily shrieked, the sheer desperation in her voice reverberating across the park. But Karen clutched him even tighter, pressing him against her chest like he was some long-lost treasure she had finally reclaimed. "You're sick," Karen spat, tears streaming down her face in dramatic streaks. "How dare you try to take him from me again? I won't let you." The crowd watching from a few feet away shifted uneasily. Some were already on their phones with 911, while others hesitated, unsure of who to believe. To the untrained eye, it looked like a classic case of he said, she said. One woman screaming that the child was hers, while the other clutched him protectively, crying hysterically. But Emily knew her baby. She knew his cries, his scent, the little birthmark behind his left ear, the way his hands always curled into tiny fists when he was scared. She knew the way his face scrunched up in distress, how his voice wavered when he was about to sob uncontrollably. And right now he was terrified. The hesitation of the bystanders only fueled Karen's confidence. She took a step back, attempting to turn away, trying to slip into the crowd, but Emily refused to let her get another inch further. Fueled by adrenaline, she lunged again, grabbing hold of Karen's arm and yanking it back with enough force to send the woman stumbling. "I said let go," Emily roared, her voice no longer trembling, but filled with pure, unfiltered rage. Karen shrieked as if she were the victim, twisting violently in Emily's grasp. "Help! Help! She's trying to hurt me," she wailed, her voice shrill, frantic. The crowd watched in stunned silence, unsure whether to intervene or let the authorities handle it. But Emily wasn't going to wait for someone to make that decision for her. She went for Noah. With a surge of energy she didn't even know she possessed, Emily reached out and grabbed her baby's tiny leg, holding on tight despite Karen's desperate attempts to twist away. "Give him back," she snarled through gritted teeth, tugging at Noah's body as gently as she could while prying Karen's iron grip from him. Noah screamed louder, his tiny fingers grabbing at Emily's shirt, his instincts pulling him toward the one person he knew was safe. Karen lost her footing. The sudden pull caught her off guard, and she staggered, her grip slipping just enough for Emily to rip Noah away from her arms. The moment he was back in her embrace, Emily collapsed to the ground, shielding his trembling body with her own, her arms cocooning him protectively as he sobbed into her chest. Relief, hot and overwhelming, crashed over her in waves. He was safe. He was safe. But it wasn't over. Karen, now wild-eyed and shaking, scrambled to her feet, her expression morphing from desperation to fury. "You witch!" she shrieked, her entire body shaking with rage. "You stole him from me. He's mine!" Emily barely had time to react before Karen lunged at her again, her hands clawing toward Noah as if she could still take him back. But this time, Emily wasn't alone. A man, one of the parkgoers who had been watching in horrified silence, stepped in at the last second, grabbing Karen by the arm and yanking her back just before she could reach Emily and the baby. "Enough," he growled, his grip firm, his face a mask of disgust. Another woman, one who had been on the phone with the police, rushed forward, placing herself between Karen and Emily like a human barrier. "The cops are on their way," she warned, her eyes narrowing. "You need to back the hell off right now." Karen's face twisted in fury, her breath coming in sharp, ragged gasps as she struggled in the man's grip. "You don't understand. She stole him. She took my baby. She took him from me." The man's grip tightened. "Lady, I don't know what kind of crazy you're on, but you need to shut up before you make this worse for yourself." Karen opened her mouth to scream again. But before she could, the distant wail of police sirens sliced through the air. Her expression flickered with something new, panic. Emily watched as Karen's eyes darted from left to right, scanning the park for an escape route, her mind racing as she calculated her next move. But it was too late. Two police cruisers skidded to a stop near the sidewalk, doors flinging open as uniformed officers rushed onto the scene. Everything happened in a whirlwind after that. The officers immediately separated Emily and Karen, forcing the deranged woman to the ground when she refused to comply. "Don't touch me. I'm his mother. I'm his mother," Karen shrieked, her voice raw, her body thrashing as the officers pinned her arms behind her back. "He's mine. She took him from me. She took him from me." Emily, still on the ground, clutching Noah tightly, could do nothing but stare at the woman who had tried to steal her child. Her stomach churned, bile rising in her throat as the reality of what had just happened fully sank in. This woman, this complete stranger, had tried to take Noah, had tried to convince the world that he was hers, and she had nearly succeeded. One of the officers, a woman with kind but serious eyes, knelt beside Emily. "Are you okay?" she asked, her voice softer than the chaos surrounding them. Emily nodded shakily, her arms tightening around Noah, who was still sobbing against her chest. She just grabbed him," she whispered, her voice breaking. "She said he was hers. She just took him." The officer's jaw tightened, and she gave Emily a firm nod. "We've got her," she assured, standing up as another officer helped Karen to her feet, now handcuffed and screaming in rage. "She's not going anywhere." Emily exhaled sharply, pressing her lips to the top of Noah's head, inhaling his warm, familiar scent. It was over, for now, but something told her this nightmare was far from finished. The air still buzzed with tension as the officers led Karen toward one of the police cruisers, her screams splitting through the park like the wail of a siren. "You're making a mistake. He's mine. She stole him. Call social services. They know. They know." Her voice was wild, desperate, filled with a rage that made Emily's blood run cold. Even as the officers forced her into the back seat, she kept screaming, her body thrashing against the seatbelt as if sheer willpower alone could break her free. Emily stood frozen, her arms locked around Noah, his tiny body still trembling against her chest. The weight of what had just happened pressed down on her like an anchor, suffocating, unbearable. A few of the parkgoers who had witnessed the entire ordeal lingered nearby, murmuring among themselves, their faces tight with disbelief. Some still clutched their phones, having recorded everything, no doubt waiting to hand the footage over to the police. A female officer approached, her uniform crisp, her expression professional but kind. "Ma'am, my name is Officer Rodriguez. We're taking statements from everyone who witnessed what happened, but first, I need to ask, are you and your baby hurt?" Emily swallowed the lump in her throat and shook her head. "No, we're okay," she whispered. Her voice felt hoarse, like she had been screaming for hours instead of mere minutes. Rodriguez nodded. "Good. I know this was terrifying, but I need you to tell me everything, step by step. Anything you can remember. Start from the moment you saw her." Emily exhaled shakily, shifting Noah in her arms so she could rub his back in soothing circles. She was just there," she started, her voice still unsteady. "1 second. I was watching Noah in a stroller, and the next, she was standing right in front of us, asking questions." She squeezed her eyes shut, trying to recall every detail. She kept saying how beautiful he was, how perfect. She asked his name, his age. Where he was born, she kept staring at him, like she was memorizing his face. Rodriguez's expression darkened slightly, her jaw tightening. "Did she mention knowing you before today? Did she say anything about being related to you or the baby?" Emily shook her head. "No. She just kept talking like she was reminiscing, like she knew him somehow, but I had never seen her before in my life." Her fingers curled tighter around Noah's onesie. Then she just grabbed him, screamed that he was hers, and ran. Rodriguez's lips pressed into a thin line. "And you've never seen her before today? No strange encounters? No weird phone calls or people following you?" Emily frowned, thinking hard. Had there been anything unusual? Any red flag she had overlooked? "I don't think so," she admitted. "I mean, I post pictures of Noah on my social media sometimes, but that's normal, right? I never thought." She cut herself off, her heart lurching. Could that be it? Had Karen seen Noah's photos online? Had she been watching them all along? Rodriguez must have sensed her train of thought because she immediately asked, "Are your accounts public?" Emily's stomach twisted. "Yes," she whispered, suddenly feeling sick. The officer's expression turned grim. "It's possible she's been following you online. We see it more often than you'd think. People with delusions fixating on babies, especially new mothers who post about their children publicly." She flipped open a small notepad and jotted something down. "We'll need to check her background, see if she's had any prior incidents, but my gut is telling me this isn't the first time she's done something like this." Emily's breath hitched. What happens now? What if she gets out? Rodriguez softened slightly but remained firm. "She's being taken in for attempted kidnapping and possibly endangering the welfare of a child. That's serious. But whether she stays in custody depends on a lot of factors." She hesitated before adding, "If she has a history of mental illness, or if she argues that she genuinely believed the child was hers, things could get complicated." Emily's blood ran cold. "Complicated?" Rodriguez sighed. "We've seen cases like this where the suspect tries to claim they were confused, that it was all a misunderstanding. If she has no prior record, she might not be held as long as we'd like." "No," Emily said, her voice suddenly fierce, her hold on Noah tightening. She knew what she was doing. She wasn't confused. She planned this. She waited until I was alone and vulnerable. Rodriguez nodded. "I believe you. But the system doesn't always work as fast as it should. That's why we need to make sure this goes on record. You'll need to press charges." Emily didn't hesitate. "I will." Rodriguez gave a satisfied nod. "Good. In the meantime, I'd recommend tightening your security, on social media and in real life. If you notice anything suspicious, anyone watching you, any unusual messages, report it immediately. And if you have family or friends nearby, stay with them for a while, just to be safe." Emily's chest tightened. She hated the idea that her own home might not be safe. But after what just happened, she wasn't taking any chances. A different officer walked up to Rodriguez and handed her a clipboard. "She's in the system," he muttered, his expression tense. "And you were right. She's done this before. Emily's breath caught. What? Rodriguez scanned the document and frowned deeply. Her real name is Karen Mitchell, 46 years old. She was investigated 3 years ago for attempting to take a baby from a hospital, claiming it was hers. The mother fought back, just like you did, and the baby was recovered. But Karen's family argued she had suffered a breakdown, and she was released after mandatory psychiatric treatment. The case was sealed. Emily's stomach flipped, and they let her go? Rodriguez met her gaze. They did. And now, she tried again. The reality of it hit Emily like a truck. This wasn't just some crazy woman having a bad day. This was a predator. And if she hadn't fought back, if she had hesitated for just a second longer, Noah could have been gone. Rodriguez straightened. We'll push for the strongest charges possible this time. You will need to testify, but I promise you, we will make sure she doesn't get another chance. Emily inhaled deeply, kissing the top of Noah's head as he nestled closer, finally calming in her arms. She wouldn't live in fear. She wouldn't let Karen or anyone else think they could take what was hers. And she would do whatever it took to make sure Noah was safe. Forever.